I still remember the day I found out my husband was not who he claimed to be. We were in court, and he was testifying against me. I felt like my whole world was crashing down. The witness stand, where my husband sat, seemed like a podium of lies. Every word he spoke was a betrayal, every glance a deception. I thought I knew him, but it turned out I was living with a stranger. His words cut deep, like a knife to my heart. The courtroom fell silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat. I was frozen in shock, unable to move or speak. My husband's eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of guilt. But it was quickly replaced by a mask of confidence. The judge's voice brought me back to reality, but I was still reeling from the shock. What was my husband hiding? And why was he lying to me in court? We met in law school, and our relationship was a fairy tale. My husband, Alex, was charming, intelligent, and kind. He had a quick wit and a sharp mind, and I was drawn to his confidence. We studied together, explored the city, and eventually, we fell in love. After law school, we got married, and our friends and family thought we were the perfect couple. Alex landed a high-paying job at a prestigious law firm, and I started my own practice. We were happy, or so I thought. Looking back, I realized that Alex was always secretive about his past. He would brush off my questions, saying he didn't want to dwell on the negative. I thought he was just humble, but now I wonder if he was hiding something. Our marriage was a whirlwind of romance, travel, and success. We were the envy of our friends, but behind closed doors, I started to notice little things. Alex would receive mysterious phone calls, and he would leave the room to answer them. He would be distant, preoccupied, and sometimes he would disappear for hours without explanation. I brushed it off as work-related stress, but the doubts lingered. One day, I received a summons to appear in court. I was being sued by a former client, and Alex offered to represent me. I thought it was a gesture of love and support, but now I realize it was a clever move to control the situation. The day of the trial arrived, and I was nervous but confident. Alex was by my side, and I trusted him with my life. But as he took the stand, I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was off, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. As the trial progressed, I started to notice inconsistencies in Alex's testimony. He would contradict himself, and his alibi didn't add up. I felt a growing sense of unease, but I couldn't confront him in the middle of the trial. The prosecutor was relentless, and Alex was calm and collected. But I knew him, and I could see the faintest glimmer of guilt in his eyes. The judge adjourned the court, and we broke for lunch. I cornered Alex in the hallway, demanding to know what was going on. He brushed me off, saying I was being paranoid. But I knew what I saw, and I knew what I felt. The rest of the trial was a blur. I was numb, going through the motions, but my mind was racing. What was Alex hiding? And why was he lying to me? The verdict was delivered, and I was found guilty. As we left the courtroom, Alex's mask slipped, and I saw a fleeting glimpse of triumph. It was then that I realized I was married to a stranger, a man who had been lying to me for years. The question was, what else was he hiding? And how could I escape the web of lies he had spun around me? I felt like I was living in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to wake up. The city streets seemed darker, the people more menacing, and the shadows deeper. I was alone, and I didn't know who to trust. I hired a private investigator to dig into Alex's past. It wasn't easy, but eventually, we uncovered a trail of deceit and corruption. Alex was not who he claimed to be. He was a con artist, a master manipulator, and a liar. He had created a false identity, and he had been using it to swindle people out of their money. I felt like I had been living in a dream world, a world that was about to come crashing down. The investigator found evidence of Alex's true identity, and we took it to the authorities. Alex was arrested, and he was charged with fraud and identity theft. As I watched him being led away in handcuffs, I felt a mix of emotions. I was relieved that the truth was finally out, but I was also sad. I had loved Alex, or at least, I thought I did. But it turned out that everything he had ever told me was a lie. The trial was a long and difficult process, but in the end, justice was served. Alex was found guilty, and he was sentenced to prison. I was finally free from the web of lies he had spun around me. I could start to rebuild my life, to find out who I was outside of the marriage. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to move on. I started to see a therapist, to work through my emotions and to come to terms with what had happened. It was a long and difficult journey, but I was determined to heal. And as I looked back on the experience, I realized that I had learned a valuable lesson. I had learned to trust my instincts, to listen to my gut, and to never ignore my doubts. I had learned that sometimes, the people we trust the most can be the ones who hurt us the deepest. As I reflect on the experience, I realize that I was blinded by love. I was so caught up in the romance and the fairy tale that I ignored the warning signs. But I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned to be more cautious, to trust my instincts, and to never ignore my doubts. The experience was painful, but it was also a valuable lesson. I've emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I've learned to appreciate the little things in life, to cherish the people who truly care about me, and to never take anything for granted. And as I look to the future, I'm excited to see what's in store. I'm excited to start a new chapter, to meet new people, and to experience new things. I'm excited to live life on my own terms, to be true to myself, and to never compromise my values. The journey ahead won't be easy, but I'm ready. I'm ready to face the challenges, to overcome the obstacles, and to emerge victorious. I'm ready to live my life with purpose, with passion, and with integrity. And as I take my first step into the unknown, I know that I'll always be okay. I'll always be strong, I'll always be resilient, and I'll always be true to myself.